So I said to you yesterday your test is going to be Thursday. This weekend I will send out a video tutorial. I will. Probably 2 or 3 of them. The only thing I'm going to mention is in the video tutorial, almost certainly I will be going over from the Ultimate Kinematics Review a fairly challenging question because they used to love throwing it on the provincial. It's number 35, where a projectile hits a wall. I always covered it because it was always on the provincial exam. Every second or third year it would show up. This is one of the things that this year, because we've got shorter classes than when I used to teach Physics 12, that has been axed. So when you watch the video tutorial, Bryce, you're going to see me probably go for 15 minutes on something like this. You can watch it. It's an A++ level question. It's not going to show up on your test. This might show up as the nasty multiple choice. Maybe it won't show up as a written. Okay? It's really cool. Meanwhile, let's get back to the quiz. All vectors have both magnitude and direction. Magnitude means size. So scalars have size only. Volume is a scalar. Mass is a scalar. Time is a scalar. Vectors have both magnitude and direction. Now, sometimes I may only be interested in the magnitude when we look at forces next unit. Often, because we have things moving in all, especially when we have 2 masses, things have been moving in different directions, we'll just get the magnitude of the acceleration and say, good enough. All right. Cannonball is fired horizontally from a cannon on top of a 25-meter high cliff at a velocity of 80 meters per second. I got a dope. Cliff. Velocity equals 80 meters per second. And you can see, Connor, I even labeled it Vx because that's definitely horizontal, and I want to make sure I'm not tempted to put that 80 into the vertical column. And it looks like they also gave me a vertical distance of 25. It's worth taking the time to make your diagram fairly clear. All righty. Alec, what's A want me to find? Time. This is projectile. T-table. Are there angles? Okay, so I'm not going to do the sine cos component thing, but I'm definitely going to do a T-table. Okay. So in my T-table, I'm going to have horizontal, vertical. I can write down my physics no-brainers. And then it looks like Vx is 80. Vy initial. Ooh. What is Vy initial? For horizontally from a cliff, it's 0. And again, I've lost track of how many times I see kids put the 80 there. Right when you leave the cliff for a split second, Rick, you haven't started falling yet. 0. And it looks like I have a vertical displacement, negative 25. And now I'm committed. There's my 3 things, Alec. I'm going to find time this way. I'm looking for an equation that has A, V, D, and T in it. There is one. It's really D equals VIT plus a half AT squared, but what's VI? I'll take that. If I want to get the T by itself, it's going to be 2 times D divided by A square rooted. 2 times negative 25 divided by negative 9.8. It's going to be 2 point something, I think. Unless I did the math totally wrong in my head, which is possible. 2 times negative 25 divided by negative 9.8. Yeah, 2 point something. It's going to be the square root of 5. 2.25. Up there in my answer, I'm going to go 2.26 seconds. If you got that right, that gets you 2 marks. If you forgot to put units, take a half mark off. If you didn't get that right, I'll show you the part marks that I would give out in a bit. Pierce, what's B want me to find? Which one, horizontal or vertical? Oh, the range, you say. So now it wants me to find that. Well, I can find that by going, you know what, let's put y's here, so I remember that that was vertical. And now I can find the range by going vxt. What happened to the half at squared? A is 0. I'll take that. So it's going to be 80. I'll write 2.26? But I'm going to use my answer button to be a little more accurate. 80 times answer button. Y'all get 180 points, 181. Okay, I would accept 180 to 2 sig figs or 181. Well, this was 2.2588 and 181 meters. 2 marks for that. If you did not, I would consider get both of those right. I would probably do something like this. I would give you a half mark if I saw that you had done our physics no-brainers, our ax equals 0 and ay equals negative 9.8. I would probably give you a half mark if I saw that you had gotten the velocities correct. The Vx is 80 and the Vy, big yawn, big yawn, big yawn, big yawn. Now we're good. A Vy initial is 0. Okay? I would give you a half mark if I saw that, and then a half mark for the answer. For part 2, I would give you 1 whole mark if I saw that, and then 1 mark for the answer, because you've done all the hard work by then. How else could I change horizontally from a cliff? Instead of giving you the height and saying find the range, I could give you the range and say find the height. Could do that. A nasty question would be to ask you the impact velocity. The impact, this might be a good example of, here's the challenge multiple choice question, although I have covered this one. The impact velocity would look like that, and it would be made up of Vx, 80, right? And Vy final, which you'd have to calculate by saying Vy initial is 0, A is negative 9.8, dy is negative 25. You could find Vy final, and then you could add them together. How would I add those 2 vectors together? Draw them. Do the Pythagoras, find the theta. That's a lot of work for one question. I might feel comfortable making that like a nasty multiple choice. Projectile is launched from the ground at an angle of 58 degrees. It's going to look like this. 28 meters per second. 58 degrees. Did I say angle? This is a job for components. Holy smokes, part A is actually asking me to find the components. I might do that, Justin. I might simply assume that I've done the rant. Did I say angle? This is a job for. That I've done that enough that I don't need to cue you like I did here on a test. I may just say, for Pete's sakes, there's an angle. I hope nobody's using that 28. They're going to components, right? I hope. So we have Vx and Vy initial, hypotenuse, adjacent, opposite. This is a quiz. I'll show a little more work. We've done lots of shortcuts. I'll smile along the way as my shortcuts come to fruition. I'll say, okay, cos 58 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. I'll smile and put the 28 there, and I'll say, of course it was, right? 28 cos 58. Up here, I'm going to write 14.8377. 14.8377. Here, I'm going to go to 2 sig figs in my answer, which is going to, or 3 sig figs, which is going to be 14.8 meters per second. Sorry, I have to write it below the answer spot because I didn't leave enough room. 1 mark, half mark off if you missed the units. If you told me the answer was 14.8377, let's get in the habit of final answers to 3 sig figs, please. I won't take marks off this time. Eventually, as the year progresses, I might. If Vx was cos, Josh, what trig function do you think Vy is going to be? let's prove it, because we're on a quiz, we'll be more careful and more meticulous. It turns out I go sine 28 equals Vy initial over, sine 58. Sine 58 over 28, and sure enough, I go like that. Josh, you've seen the sign. You are correct. 23.7453. So I'll write down here Vy initial is 23. What did I say? 7453. I'll give my answer here as 23.7 meters per second, 1 mark. Why am I writing down the answers longer? I think I'm going to use them later, and I'd like the extra sig figs for security. What is the maximum height? Okay. Height, vertical. Yes? And part B, how long is the projectile in the air? I think that's going to be vertical too. Although normally I do a T-table, I'm going to skip the horizontal here, Brisa, and only do vertical here, because I'm pretty sure this whole thing is vertical, vertical, vertical. So I'm going to just say, all right, vertical. AY, negative 9.8. Vy initial, in fact, I'll call this part B right here. Vy initial was 23.7453. By the way, when would Vy initial be negative? What situation would be occurring then? Instead of firing the projectile up at an angle, which way would you be firing it? Instead of firing the projectile up at an angle, which way would you be firing it? Down. Now, you can't do that from the ground, so it'd have to be from a cliff. I think there is one like that in the ultimate review, where instead of launching from the cliff upwards at an angle, it launches from a cliff downwards at an angle. Make sure you let Vy initial be negative. Otherwise, you'll get wonky answers. Oh, you know what? At the top, so I can go T equals V final minus V initial over A. It's going to be 0 minus V initial, all divided by negative 9.8. And I get 2.42 seconds. 2.42 seconds. Is that correct? People nodding? No? Yeah? Oh, I want maximum height, Mr. Duick. Jeez, I'm scrolling down. I want maximum height, Mr. Duick. So you're suggesting I want to find D here. Good gosh, this is going out on YouTube. Everyone's going to be disappointed how dumb I am. I think I'm going to use VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. Is that right? I'm going to go D equals VF squared minus VI squared all over 2A. By the way, that wasn't C that I just did either. I hope you didn't say that that was the answer for C, because that's only half of the trip. Kiana's looking panicked right now. She might want to very rapidly, before I get to marking part C, double her answer for part C. I'm just speculating out there, but that's worth thinking about. That was such a backhanded compliment, Mr. Duick. Sorry. Oh, now I lost my answer button. So it's going to be bracket 0 squared, which is really just 0, minus 23.7453 squared, divided by bracket 2 times negative 9.8. Do y'all get a maximum height of 28.8? No? Yes? Yes? Okay, sorry. Nobody you all get it? And I just saw 30 poker faces. Uh-huh. One yawn. No, I didn't see the yawn that time. 28.8? 28.8 meters. Let's try that one and answering the correct question. 2 marks for that. Forgot the units, half mark. If you got that wrong, I would probably do something like this. I would almost certainly give you 1 mark if I saw that. I would give you a half mark if you had realized that. And then a half mark for the answer. C. Two ways to do part C. What's the first way to do part C, Kiana? Take your answer from part B and do, or sorry, we don't have a time value for part B yet, do we? We just want the total time. I'm going to do it in one fell swoop. I'm going to say to myself, self, AY is negative 9.8. VY initial is 23.7453. You might be saying, Mr. Dewick, I let VY final be 0, and then I doubled it. To you, I would say, I can get there in one step because I know VY final. Are we starting on the ground? Kiana, my angel. Are we ending on the ground? Kiana, my angel. In other words, if I want to generalize, are we starting and ending at the same vertical height? Then I'll have to have the same vertical speed, the opposite vertical velocity, negative 23.7453. The trigger I've tried to use with you for that, Emily, is I've said, what goes up must come, everybody, down. Okay? That only works if you're starting at the same height. Cliffs, that only works if for some reason I ask you to talk about the cliff height. But if you keep falling, this trick won't work. But for now, I can go V final minus V initial over A. It's going to be negative 23.7453 minus 23.7453. Of course, the other thing you could just do is double negative VI, because that's what the top works out to. Make VI negative times 2. Dope. Close bracket divided by negative 9.8. Kiana, what'd you get for time? Oh, you are ever so clever. I got 4.85, but I'll take 4.84 because it's right on the rounding threshold, and I'm not sure if you use the full value or not. You might get different values. So, yeah, 4.8, 4, or 5. No, it can't be 0. It's not 0 when it hits the ground. If you don't believe me, Rick, right now, do a belly flop onto the concrete. I assure you, V final is not 0. V final is 0 at the top, and then double it, if you want to use that method. But I assure you, when you hit the ground, VY final is never, ever, 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 ever 0. Again, do a belly flop onto concrete, and you'll find out. Right. Sorry for the big rant there. It's a common mistake, Rick, by the way. People always want to say that, and that's why I keep yelling at all of you, hey, meters, Mr. Duke, seconds. It can't be 0, otherwise falling wouldn't hurt. After you hit the ground, it's 0, but that's not what we're talking about, free fall, not after impact. Here, I would probably give you 1 mark if I saw that equation, and I would give you 1 mark for the answer. I'll be fussy. If you did put a 0 in, or if you got half the time, I'm only going to give you 1 out of 2. You only got half the time, you only get half the marks. See how nothing? Okay. Turn the page. You awake, Connor? You sure? Yeah? Okay. Hey, they want me to add 2 vectors. Deb, any suggestions on how I might want to add them together? Tip to tail, you say. I also see compass directions, so I'm cleverly going to put a little compass rose on here. Force F1, 5 newtons east, plus 12 newtons south. So if I add this together, 5, 12, and I think the resultant is that bad boy. That gets you 1 mark. Or you could have gone 12 and 5 this way. That also gets you 1 mark. You'll notice my resultants look very similar. I don't care which way you did it. I typically go in the order they give them to me, unless it's way easier mathematically to draw it the other way. If you do the Pythagoras, Mr. Dewick was very clever and tried to make this work out evenly. You'll find the magnitude, you know what, I think I can put it right here, Mr. Dewick. The magnitude is 13 newtons. That gets you 1 mark. This is a vector. According to question 0, all vectors have both what and what? I need a direction. Theta is going to be there, opposite, adjacent. Tan theta equals opposite over adjacent. Shift tan 12 divided by 5, I get 67.4 degrees. 64.7? Good gosh. 67.4 degrees. North of south, east of west, what of what? That's south of east. I would also accept 13 newtons at 90 minus this answer. 22.6 degrees east of south. So the way I mark this, 1 mark for the magnitude, half mark for the theta, half mark for the what of what. If you got the wrong what of what, you lose a half mark. 4 is nasty. I am going to give you on your test either a boat crossing a river or an airplane in a crosswind. What I won't do is give you one where the river or the crosswind is at a yucky angle. It will be a nice right angle triangle. This is an example of one where the river or the crosswind is at a yucky angle. That 30 degrees is a pain. Correctly labeled vector diagram. I might actually end up needing more room than I left you here, but we'll see. I've scrolled down, so Connor, I'm going to put another compass rose here because plane travels 220 meters due east. (220 meters per second). Did I say meters? Meters per second due east. There's a crosswind blowing. By the way, what we're really using, and this is on your formula sheet, we're using the notion of ground velocity is the plane's engine velocity plus the plane's wind velocity. I think that's on your formula sheet. I think 3rd row, 4th row. Yes? What if I gave you the ground velocity? What if I gave you this and this and asked you to find that there? What if I gave you the ground velocity and the wind velocity and asked you to find that? How could you find the engine velocity? How would you get the VE by itself? How would you move that VW over? And this might be a situation where you would subtract vectors. How would you subtract vectors? You don't add them to... Oh, we don't. We cleverly add the opposite. I probably will throw a subtraction question somewhere on your test. I haven't done a bunch of them. Where does subtraction also show up? What's changing anything? Not its forces. What's changing anything? Did you say minus when you went final? Minus initial? I might ask you to find a change in on your test. A lot of people just add them. No, you have to go minus. All right, back here. 80 meters per second at 30 degrees north of east. North of what? East. North of what? East. North of what? North of what? I'm going to draw east first. What of east? North. 30 degrees north of east. This line is going to be 80. And now I'm going to really zoom in so you can see that. You see an angle? You know what this is a job for? Okay. Now, I should point out, and I will teach you this later, and you may know how to do this. Technically, you should, because it's Math 10 and 11. You can add these together. How do I add two vectors together, Devin? You can go like that, where this is 200, and this is 80, and that is your resultant. I already know, I know the resultant when I'm done is going to look like that. It's going to be slightly slanty up. And you can solve this. This angle right here is 30 degrees, which means this angle here has to be 150 because the two of them form a 180 degree angle. And this can be solved using the cosine law and the sine law, which are on your formula sheet in the little triangle section there. And if you know how to do that, honestly, that's how I would do it. And later on, by around Christmas, I'll show you this method. It's more complicated mathematically, way less writing. And so, Devin, you've had me enough to know that if there's a method that uses less writing, I'm going to gravitate towards that. But for now, I'm going to use, are there angles? Did I say angles is the job 4? I'm going to take that 30 degrees, 80 meters per second, and I'm going to break it up into Vx and Vy. Hypotenuse, adjacent, opposite. I think Vy ends up being exactly 40 meters per second north. Yes, I did that one in my... I know sine of 30 is a half. Vx ends up being 80 times the cosine of 30. 80 times the cosine of 30. It ends up being 69.282 meters per second east. So now let me zoom back out. So here's what I really have. (220) plus 69.282 plus 40. That's what that question really is. Why is that a much nicer version of the above question? What can I do with the two east vectors? Just add them. Well, I'd go winner minus loser, but they're both winners. What if that 69.282 was pointed in the opposite direction? Then I'd go winner minus loser. So really what I have is this. East 289.282. Tip to tail with 40. My scale right now is terrible, but I did tell you that I knew the resultant would be a slightly up slanty line. It is. This is my resultant. This is what I'm going to try and find. So when I do Pythagoras, it's going to be this squared plus 40 squared equals square root 292. Yeah. Meters per second at, and I need a theta. It's going to be tan theta equals 40 over 289.282. So shift tan 40 over 289.282. 7.9 degrees, 7.87. I'm going to go 7.9 degrees. North of south, east of west, what of what? This is north of east, or 82.1 degrees east of north. That's a pretty challenging question. So, correctly labeled vector diagram. If I saw that, that gets you 1 mark. This question should be worth more marks because it's lots of work, but I didn't want to hammer you. So it's going to be 1 mark for the magnitude, half mark for the theta, half mark for the what of what. Okay. Gonna make it, Josh? Following along on the quiz that I see you carefully, Mark? Yeah. I called you. You guys are looking dead this morning. Your long weekend starts at 3 o'clock, but not now. So I told you that there is going to be a vector question as the written question on your test, yes? But I did tell you it's not going to be a yucky one that you'll have to go components. It'll be nice right angles, okay? I like question 5. I like question 5. I like question 5. Question 5 is a nice question. Whew. Ready, Pierce? Good. Ready, Bryce? Good. Ready, Josh? Because you and I are going to dance together. Here we go. Josh, look at the question. Is this a projectile question? T-table. Physics no-brainers. looking at the picture. Oh, do I need to dulp? They did that for me. Yay! Typical. I think on the test for the cliff at an angle, I gave you a diagram. Probably for the airplane crosswind or river current, I won't, because that's part of the skill I'm assessing there. Can you draw the diagram? See the velocity? Do you see an angle? You know what this is the job for? Components. So I'll do that here. I need to find Vy initial and Vx. Hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. I think Vy initial is going to end up being sine, but because this is a quiz, I'll be a bit more careful. Oh, moving stuff around. So I think I get this. Sine 30 equals Vy initial over 20. Josh, how would I get the Vy initial by itself? What will I do with the 20? And I think you get Vy initial is exactly 10, yes? I use 30 degrees a lot just because I know the sine of 30 is 0.5. Sadly, I probably won't do that on the test, though. You'll have to do the calculator stuff. I think cos 30 equals Vx over 20. Vx ends up being 17.3205. Is that right? 17.3205. Gonna make it, Connor?
Yeah.
I'm hearing more signs, sighs, and yawns. Suck it up, my angels. It's early. It's not. Josh, how many things do I have written in the horizontal column? How about in the vertical column? Not enough. They must have given me something else. What else did the question tell me? Did they give me the range or did they give me the height? What's dy? Careful. Oh, sorry, Josh. Thank you. You got the negative. I'm going to find time vertically. I'm going to go d equals VIT plus a half AT squared. I'm going to go negative 36 equals 10t minus 4.9t squared. By the way, I'm going to do the quadratic method. If you did finding velocity, I'll show you how I'll give up part marks and stuff like that, but we should get the same answer. 4.9t squared minus 10t minus 36 equals 0. T is going to be 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared. I know it's negative 10 squared, but what happens to the negative when I square it? It vanishes, so I'm always sloppy there because putting negatives and squaring them in my calculator doesn't always behave the way I expect it to, so I know it's going to vanish anyways, and it's less typing. I saw some of you looking a little confused. Okay, I'll put the negative in. Negative 10 squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. I think I told you I usually do that as well. So there. Time for my calculator. Josh, is this a fraction? Yeah, you better believe it. Is there more than one thing on the top? You better believe it. So, bracket 10 plus square root, open a square root bracket depending on your calculator, but most of them you'll have to, unless you have the newer ones that kind of indent and do a little, then you're better. 10 squared. Sorry. In your head, Connor, what's 10 squared? I'm embarrassed that I didn't just do that in my head. I should have. My minus sign vanished there, didn't it? B squared minus 4AC. Minus 4 times A times C. Close off the square root. Close off the top. Divided by 9.8. Do you get 3.9166 for your time? No? Yes? People nodding? And I think the other one you find is negative, yes? Mr. Dewick, will you ever find two positive times? Maybe, but I'll show you how that would work in a bit. This is not what they wanted me to find. They wanted me to find the range. The range is VXT. The range is going to be 17.3205 times 3.9166. Final answer. You get 67.8. I'd take 67.9. I'd take 67.7. I'd take 68. Units, Josh? Yep. Hopefully you had a clever physics teacher who last year told you it was worth memorizing what units go. Okay. If you got that, 7 out of 7. 7 marks? So what you're going to find is, on my tests, any written question is almost always going to be worth 7 marks, so that I can give lots and lots and lots of part marks. So if you got this right, 7 out of 7, this is how I mark these. I look and check your answer first. I scan the work. If the work looks legit and the answer is correct, because it's possible you could have fluked into the wrong answer by making 2 mistakes that cancel each other out. I check for that. You get 7 out of 7. If that is not the case, I go back and I would probably do something like this. I would give you 1 mark for finding Vx, 1 mark for finding Vy. I would give you 1 mark if I saw that you had done the physics no-brainers. In other words, you've got 3 out of 7 right now. You've almost passed the question, and you've only started the setup. This goes back to what I tried to teach you last year. I am much bigger on the process rather than the actual answer. Then what? I would probably give you 1 mark if I saw time, 1 mark if I saw that equation. That's up to 5. I would give you 1 mark if I saw that. That's up to 6. 1 mark if I saw 7. Did anybody do the find Vy final method? If you did, I can look over your paper and did you get it? First of all, did you get it perfect? Okay, then 7 out of 7. If not, if you didn't get it right and use the Vy final method, I can look over your paper and I'll show you how I would break down the part marks for that if you want. I'll just do that later, a couple of minutes. Okay? Can you give yourself a lovely score out of 24?